start asking yourself the question, what is a hard asset? What makes an asset hard? Does an asset have to be physical to be hard, right? That's an interesting question that people should contemplate. And as you go through this process, you're going to start figuring out that Bitcoin is the prime, premier, apex predator asset that has ever been created. And that's why there is so much interest in it, and the interest is growing, right? You should be focused on getting to one Bitcoin and then focusing on, okay, if you've got more, if your net worth is high enough to get where one Bitcoin is more than, is a smaller amount than the amount you want to allocate to Bitcoin, then how do I fill up that allocation? And if you're not, then you need to figure out how to get more Bitcoin, right? Whether it's jobs, opportunities, entrepreneurship, whatever it is. We're talking to people are talking about the Bitcoin price going down over the last few days. Everyone's forgetting the fact that there's a Fed interest rate decision imminent, right, this week. I don't think any of this is to do with to do anything with Bitcoin or anything else. I think it's just Fed driven. So I don't think there's any real exciting stuff to think about here. It's just the market's taking a dip. I'm buying up other positions that I wanted to buy as well. And that's it. We just sit here and wait. That's the power of actually investing. And if you've been invested in any other assets, you know that the most powerful thing that you can do is just sit and wait, do nothing. Doing nothing is often the best strategy when it comes to allowing the world to process its craziness, right? You let the world process its craziness, and that will come back to you. And that's generally how markets work out, right? So again, Hong Kong ETFs, absolutely terrible on first day. They will probably build up over a period of time, but nothing's going to be as powerful as the American ETFs. The question that you need to ask yourself, if I were you, I would be asking myself the question of, okay, so now these American ETFs are out, now that the asset has been rubber stamped, now that you can't get fired for recommending Bitcoin ETFs in America, what am I going to do to attract more Bitcoin into my life, right? What am I going to do in terms of work, job opportunities, entrepreneurship opportunities, whatever else I have to get more Bitcoin into my life in a safe and consistent way without risking the Bitcoin stack that I already have? That should be the question. It's the same question. If you've been involved in real estate, it's the same question you asked yourself then. It's the same question you asked yourself with equities. It's the same question. It's always the same question. How do I earn more fiat money to put it into the hardest assets that humanity has ever created? That's it. It's really not that complicated. And of course, along the way, you're going to get the doom and gloom boomers, right? There's going to be people out there going, oh, Hong Kong, see what happened in Hong Kong? That means it's all irrelevant, not realizing that Hong Kong market is like 14 times smaller than the US market. And they don't have a big and developed ETF market too. In fact, the Bitcoin ETF might be the thing that helps develop the Hong Kong ETF market because people have confidence in it. People in Hong Kong and Asian stock markets and Asian markets in general are used to gambling. Right? They're used to high-driven returns. Let's go right now. I'm getting into this because that person said so type of market. So Bitcoin's perfect for that once it gets going, right? But it's certainly not going to be as powerful as the U.S. markets in terms of inflows. So you've got to get that out of your head, right? So at this point, you should be asking yourself, how do I get more Bitcoin? How do I attract more Bitcoin? It's a blessing that Bitcoin is under $74,000. Every day that goes by, it's a blessing that it's here. You need to start focusing on how do I acquire more Bitcoin. Ignore the doom and gloom boomers. Ignore the happy hippies. The happy hippies are more annoying to me than the doom and gloom boomers, because you have to believe that the doom and gloom boomers have at least thought about something to get them to the point of being a doom and gloom boomer. Whereas the happy hippies, what do you think about? You just wake up, be happy, and start hugging trees and shit. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So the doom and gloom boomers are actually a better species of people than the happy hippies to me, right? And so the happy hippies are basically, I can't save a happy hippie. You're just going to do what you're going to do, and it's okay, right? We just have to accept it, right? You decided to change from a normal person to a happy hippie. That is the transition you have made, and all of us have to accept it. It just is what it is. But the doom and gloom boomers, these are people who are educated, right? These are people who have studied what's going on in the world. And generally speaking, every time I speak to a doom and gloom boomer, and of course I need to clarify, a doom and gloom boomer doesn't mean they're actually a boomer, right? It's just that energy, right? It's just that energy of the world is going to collapse, everything's going to get destroyed, etc., etc. It's basically being a child, right? It's like, okay, I'm so emotionally focused in this one direction, and that's what's going to happen. Even though I'm right maybe once every 15 years and then I'm wrong for another 2 decades, it's okay. We just need to help those people get to understanding Bitcoin. And it doesn't help when you got the Peter Schiffs of the world and this, that, and the other talking out of their ass regarding gold. And the only thing I would tell you is, as an ex-gold guy myself, go look at his returns, right? I don't need to. Nassim Taleb, as much as you love him or hate him, has the best quote. Don't tell me your positions, show me your portfolio, right? And Peter Schiff himself, I think, has, 50% or whatever it is in gold and gold miners. What does he have the other 50% in, right? What have his returns been like, right? You can't get excited about gold, an impotent asset that has a pump every few years to try and break a new all-time high when it can't even keep up with its inflation-adjusted high. Anyway, so that's a whole different rant. But the thing is that doom and gloom boomers are educated people. Happy hippies are just happy hippies. So we got to try and if you're a doom and gloom boomer, you've been looking at yourself going, I've been having all these beliefs about hard assets and stuff like that. The Bitcoin ETFs in the United States of America, in the US capital markets, are the most important event for Bitcoin for the next 10 years. Everyone is going to be searching for the next dopamine hit, trying to find the next thing. Oh my God, this country or that country or this ETF or that ETF, without realizing that the number one challenge for Bitcoin in terms of institutional adoption has already been achieved, and that is the American markets and is the American ETFs. That is the single most important thing for Bitcoin, and now you've seen it evidenced because, as I've been saying, the American capital markets are 40 to 50 times bigger than some of these other markets, right? So while I'm very happy that Hong Kong has now entered the club when it comes to Bitcoin and Bitcoin ETFs, I'm very happy about that. I'm not holding my breath, and I've never been holding my breath since the American ETFs launched. And as you guys know, if you've been following the channel, I've been saying that for a while. The US ETFs is the single most important thing to happen to Bitcoin since Bitcoin itself. It is what it is. We are in a new paradigm. The paradigm is called BlackRock. The paradigm is called America. The paradigm is called US American Bitcoin ETFs. So the way you got to think about this is stop getting driven by, all this other BS that's out there. Everyone getting excited about every little thing that happens. It's like Bitcoin's so dopamine enriching for people that even when it breathes, it's a news story, right? And that's what it is. If you're an investor, you got to step out of that dopamine cycle that you're naturally in, because that's just how the market works. The market takes you there. You got to step out of that and go, okay, what are the key most important metric points for this asset? And for me, ever since I started investing in 2020, it's always been a US ETF. And that has now happened. So the single most exciting thing to happen to Bitcoin has already happened. So I don't have any dopamine spikes from any of this stuff. I don't care if a third world nation gets involved. It's not as exciting as an American ETF. Right? Now, if America or the United Kingdom or a G7 country gets involved and starts buying Bitcoin to put on their treasury balance sheet, that could be exciting, but I don't think that happens for 10 years. So I think we're at a point now. Remember, also, the market moves a lot slower than what everyone on Twitter thinks, right? And the reason for that is very simple. Reality moves a lot slower than what social media, the speed at which the internet moves at. So of course, there's going to be hyperbole and hyperbola on Twitter and social media and YouTube and things like that. But as an investor, if you're sitting there, firstly, that's why you should subscribe to the channel, right? Because this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep people, on an even kilter when it comes to, okay, what's actually going on here. And of course, I get hyperbolic too, right? Like the $100,000 by May 7th price target, right? Looks like I'm going to be wrong on that. We'll see what happens. But it looks like I'm going to be wrong on that. And you get caught up in that. That's all. It's part of the journey. But you got to catch yourself and go, okay, cool. So what's going on here, what's the process here, and how is this going to work? How is this going to work out based on new information that you've received? New information I've received is Hong Kong ETFs are, as expected, going to be less powerful than the US ETFs. Now, I didn't expect it to be this abysmal, but that's just what it is, right? So we'll see that ramp up and build up. And of course, so what have we got coming up? We've got RIAs coming up. We've got, my focus is always on the American markets. I really don't care about any other financial markets in the world. They're completely irrelevant to me. I don't care what they're trying to do. I don't care what they're trying to develop. And you realize that once you travel around the world. I know in America, sitting in America, you think that, oh my God, the BRICS are coming and this is happening and that's happening. When you start moving around the world and you realize that governments are talking one thing, the banking sector is saying another, like in Dubai, right? Government is very, very, very pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto, pro-progress, et cetera, and they are amazing, right? What they're talking, the laws that they're passing are absolutely amazing. But the banking sector in Dubai doesn't want any crypto transactions going through any bank accounts. How does those two things make sense, right? You have all of these misalignments in those markets that can be taken advantage of by the American markets and the American focus that there is on this asset now. So that's really, what I got to say. There's a lot of exciting things happening. Hong Kong ETF was bound to be a disaster compared to the American ETFs because nothing will beat the American ETFs. They are the premier asset structure in the world. Everyone wants to be inside of an American market product. And that's just how it is. The American markets are 14 times bigger than Hong Kong, much more marketing going on, much more experience going on, much more people interested and ready to invest, and the propensity of taking a risk with a higher percentage of the portfolio, and the desire and the need to take risk is much higher in the US than Hong Kong. While Hong Kong are gamblers, they're not risk takers. And so that's what is happening here, right? But ultimately, stay away from those happy hippies. And there are always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.